Welcome to O&R Insights. This video presentation delivers a systematic overview of key biblical topics, dedicated to illuminating biblical truths. Drawing from a foundation of rigorous biblical research, we offer insights tailored for deep thinkers who seek understanding and spiritual clarity.
Okay, so let's jump right in. What this study uncovers is pretty incredible. It points to this hidden spiritual battle, but it's not for land or power, it's for your attention. The argument here is that the real fight isn't about what you believe, but what you're constantly focused on. See, the most powerful deceptions are the ones that just get you looking the wrong way.
So to really get a grip on this strategy, we're going to walk through 5 key areas. We'll kick things off with the grand deception strategy itself. Then we'll unmask some really foundational lies. After that, we'll look at the counterfeit day of worship, then build up to the crowning end-time deception. And finally, we'll cover how to find protection from all of this.
All right, first up, the grand deception strategy. We're talking about how our attention itself can be weaponized.
You know, the primary goal is really just to keep us busy. So busy with the world that we completely forget that biblical command to stay watchful, which you can find in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. And what's fascinating is how this study explains it. The adversary doesn't show up looking like some scary monster. No, he comes as an angel of light. The whole trick is to create this fog of what looks like harmless distractions, all to blind us to the real danger that's lurking just behind it.
Where does a deception this big even start? You might think it's with some huge, complicated event, but it's not. It begins with fundamental lies. Lies about who we are and about who God is.
And it all kicks off with one of the biggest questions we can ask. What happens after we die? This question right here is the bedrock for so many spiritual beliefs.
So this study lays out 2 totally different answers. You have the common belief that we all have an immortal soul. This idea, you have the biblical truth. Scripture is pretty plain that our conscious existence actually stops when we die, and the dead, well, they know nothing until the resurrection. And believe it or not, this idea goes all the way back to the very beginning, in the Garden of Eden. When the serpent told Eve, "Ye shall not surely die," this study frames that as the first sermon ever preached on the immortality of the soul. That was it, the original lie that kicked this whole thing off. Okay, now here's another foundational lie, and this one has to do with God's identity at creation. You've probably heard the Hebrew term Elohim. It's often used as proof of a Trinity because it has a plural ending. But this study makes a crucial point. It argues that in this context, it's actually a majestic plural, a way of expressing greatness, not a literal head count of different beings. So that begs the question, right? When you read in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, "Let us make man in our image," who exactly is the us? The argument here is that it wasn't some kind of internal discussion within a 3-in-1 Godhead. No, this quote suggests it was a direct conversation, God the Father speaking to his Son, Jesus.
Okay, so you see how these foundational lies are being set up? Now they're used to build a deception that directly targets our worship.
And the bullseye for this diversion? It's the 4th commandment. You can see the clear contrast here. On one hand, you have the biblical Sabbath, that's the 7th day, Saturday, which was blessed and set apart right at creation. Then, on the other hand, you have the Sunday Sabbath. This study is clear. It's called a human invention, something totally unscriptural. And this isn't just a minor disagreement about which day to rest. This diversion is positioned to be absolutely central to the final conflict. This study predicts that as we see more and more disasters in the world, the blame is actually going to be put on people who don't observe Sunday. And that immense pressure is what will eventually lead to a law being passed to enforce it. So all of this is building up to a really dramatic and powerful finale in this whole cosmic drama of deception. Now, according to this study, this final deception isn't going to be some quiet theological debate. Not at all. It's going to be a huge, spectacular, supernatural event. We're talking about fearful, awe-inspiring things happening up in the heavens, all of it presented as a sign of miracle-working power. And here's the step-by-step game plan that this study lays out. First, fallen angels are going to show up, but they'll look like advanced aliens from other planets. Second, they'll offer to save us from all the global chaos and disasters they secretly caused in the first place. Then they'll introduce a new universal religion, a kind of spiritualism. Here's the kicker. They'll blame people who keep the true Sabbath for all the world's problems. That's how they'll persuade world leaders to enforce a Sunday law. And finally, they'll declare that God himself sent them to confirm that Sunday is the sacred day. Yeah, they're going to declare that the people offending God,
The ones preventing humanity from being restored are those who honor the biblical fourth commandment. It's going to be framed as a really simple choice for everyone. Either you listen to these supposed beings from the stars and bring peace to the world, or you side with this tiny group of troublemakers and let the suffering continue.
Okay, so with those huge deceptions out in the open, let's turn to some final delusions, and more importantly, how we can actually protect ourselves. Another really big one that serves as a diversion is the secret rapture theory. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's the idea that millions of believers will just be secretly taken away, vanishing, before the Great Tribulation hits.
But this study points to a completely different take, drawing from Jesus' own words in Matthew chapter 24. Jesus says his return will be like the days of Noah. Now think about that story. What happened? The flood came and destroyed them all. It took away the wicked. It was Noah, the one who was saved, who was left behind on the earth. So from this perspective, being taken is the bad outcome, not the good one.
So this raises a huge question, doesn't it? If you can't trust popular theories, and you might not even be able to trust what you see with your own two eyes. I mean, if beings that look like angels come down from the sky with a new message, what is the protection? How can anyone possibly be shielded from delusions that are that powerful?
The answer proposed in this study is that our protection isn't found in how smart we are, but in our relationship with the truth. The only real shield is for those who have been diligent students of the Scriptures. And notice the wording here. It's not just about being a student, it's about having received the love of the truth. It's that love for the truth that becomes the shield against the deception so powerful it takes the whole world captive.
And that brings us to one final, really sobering thought from Scripture. It's from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. It suggests that this strong delusion isn't just something that happens by chance. For this cause, God himself will send it so that people believe a lie. And why? Because they didn't receive the love of the truth. It leaves us with a critical question to think about. In a world that is just full of distractions, what truth will we choose to love?